Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Morristown, New Jersey. This is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York City, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show and welcome to the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is the gold standard of yoga wisdom, and so we study it as the Bhagavatam teaches to study it every day on a regular basis. Actually, how many days? Have we missed a day, Kaustubha, this year? We missed a few days.
We missed a few.
Okay, but not tons.
Not that many. I think we've missed about, I think we had missed about 18 days in the year.
So far.
18 or 19 days in the year so far. But there's been about 200 and something days, so it's pretty good.
I think it's intimidating for sometimes people, they hear about the podcast and they're like, oh my God, there's millions of these. I think it's safe to say that you could start from the beginning if you're new to this, or you could just jump in where we are and then go back and try to binge listen to. But don't get intimidated. Just jump in anywhere. Truthfully, you could jump in anywhere.
Sure.
And no matter where you eat that banana, top, bottom, middle, it's all sweet like a banana. So the Bhagavatam is very sweet, gives us spiritual information, which is necessary, if not like, it's like a necessity in this sort of crazy age of Kali Yuga, the age of quarrel and hypocrisy. And today we're in the second canto. We just started the second canto, which is, what's the title of the second canto? Something cool and dramatic.
Of this chapter?
Yeah, the chapter.
The first step in God realization.
The first step in God realization. What a like an epic title that is. Mara, what's going on today on the Patreon?
Nothing.
Nothing. Oh, okay. Well, join Patreon. Nothing's going on there.
But I have all the asana classes posted from the week. All the recordings are posted up on Patreon. So if you weren't able to join the live class, there's a bunch of asana classes up there.
Well, there you go. Thank you, Mara. Mara's our assistant. This is a community-sponsored podcast. So if you'd like to join and support us, any donation of your choice, you can join in. And we do yoga classes almost every day. Today's Friday, so there's no class today, but there's workshops we do weekly.
You know what? I'll post something today.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
There is something today, people.
Part 2 of that Karma Gyana Bhakti course that I posted last week. I posted part 1 last week. I'll post part 2 today.
There you go. Every day is a special day. All right. Well, and I'm about to see a bunch of Zoomers this weekend because we're doing an all-day workshop sponsored by Palo Santo from Philadelphia here in South Jersey.
Right.
It's exciting. So let's dive into the Bhagavatam. I'm debating. Bob's got a book open right here, but I'm going to read from the screen because it's that way I'm not looking up and looking down, looking up and looking down. All right. Om Namo. Oh no! Here's our secret. Here's our secret invocations. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udiraye Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service to the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnanatamarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksurun Midatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Alrighty. Reading from the second canto, chapter 1, text 20. All right, my daughter's up. One's mind is always agitated by the passionate mode of material nature and bewildered by the ignorant mode of nature. But one can rectify such conceptions by the relation of Vishnu and thus become pacified by cleansing the dirty things created by them. I like that line.
Dirty things.
Oh, there's tons of dirty things in my mind. One can rectify such conceptions by cleansing the dirty things created by them. You know, my first realization when I went to India was like, this place is dirty. But the minds of the people where I come from, everything's externally very clean. The highways are clean. There's no garbage here or there. But the minds can be very dirty. The minds can be angry. The minds can be resentful. The mind can hold grudges. The minds can just see people and hate people, right? Sometimes we hate people we don't know. Sometimes we hate them just because of their race or their religion or the color of their skin. Or sometimes we just don't like the way they look. Ever do that one? Someone comes in, you're like, who the hell is this guy? You don't like the way they look. We hate them. And the mind almost gets like trained in hate. We don't like the way they dress. We hate them because of that. And then we create this whole, and we practice it again and again. Matter of fact, until someone tells you don't do those things, you're like, oh, I guess it's not healthy to do this.
I thought that was the norm.
Yeah, I thought we were supposed to just like, talk ill about people we don't know for no good reason. But thoughts are things, and they start to create us. And I think a lot of advancing in yoga is to start to notice what you're thinking. And like, okay, these aren't good thoughts. These aren't healthy thoughts. These aren't healing thoughts. We've got to undo some of this. So the association of Vishnu can rectify such conceptions by cleansing dirty things created by them.
I like the way that it's actually when when we hear that, and again, Prabhupada is speaking a certain language from a certain time, and we associate words differently than he may. But when it says dirty things, you think, oh, it means like sexual things or something in the mind or something.
Well, I am thinking of those too. Okay. Don't fully let me off the hook. Those things. Anytime you have any, all right, go on with what you're going to say. I'm going to bring it back to sexual things.
The more essentially, I think I like where you went with that. Like, in other words, how do I think about other people? Do I allow my mind to like harbor resentment or even hatred to other living beings? When we get to the end of this chapter, actually, in one of the commentaries, Prabhupada, he refers to the verses of the Ishopanishad, because this chapter is going to be describing like how we see the entire universe and in our mind connected to Lord Vishnu. And when we see it in that way, it's saying those dirty things in the mind become purified. And so it's not just like dirty, like, it's like dirty old man or something like that.
Dirty, like Playboy magazine subscriptions.
Yeah, but it means like what you're saying. It's like how we think of other people. And there's that famous verse from the Ishopanishad. It says that person that systematically sees everything in relation to God, in relation to Vishnu, who sees all living entities as his parts and parcels, and who sees the Supreme Lord within everything, never hates anything or any being.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
that's right on.
Yeah. So the idea is,
This knowledge is so complete. You know, it gives you. Okay, go on.
well, just that's what's meant to, that's where the yogi is meant to come, right? What it's going to describe here, like this idea of like, okay, really what's happening here, and this is going to become clarified at the end of the next chapter. But what's happening here is, if you have trouble thinking of God as a person, and many people do, and it's not like, that's, I would say it's natural because of the way that we're conditioned in this world. It might be hard to say, Krishna is that blue boy and he's the source of everything, et cetera, et cetera. We're dependent upon and all of that. It's saying, okay, but still within your heart, you want a deeper realization about life. You want a purer life. You want a more realized and spiritual life. Then here's another way here's the first step in God realization. You can look at this universe and connect it all to Lord Vishnu, connect it all to a divine source. And that way, whenever you see anything, it's a mental kind of process by which you see everything is connected to God. And if you do that, if you practice that, what happens is that animosity that's within the heart, that feeling of separateness, of there's no connection between you and me. There's no connection between me and the earth. There's no connection between me and the animals. You lose that. You begin to see the connection between everything. You train the mind to see the connection. And then you're able, all those dirty things in the heart, like hatred. Lust is also, like we say, okay, the dirty things, but lust is really, it's a killer of love, It's a killer of the...
That's a great one. Lust is a killer of love.
Lust is a killer of love.
Because I used to think like this as a child. I think it says somewhere in the Bible, Bob, you're sort of biblical. It's not oh yeah, Jesus says, "Do not lust for." Mara, what's the lust verse?
He's like, I didn't go to Catholic school. I went to private school.
What's the lust? Yeah. If you
lust in your mind, if
you lust in your mind, you've already committed adultery.
Something like that. Yeah.
I used to think as a young teenager, like a 14-year-old, I used to think like, well, once I'm attracted to someone, I'm gonna lust after them. Like, do we have to get rid of all lust? What if you marry someone, you still will lust after them? And Bob's got it. Matthew 5:27. Say it loud into the mic.
Oh, we got it. Nice.
That whoever so looketh on a woman to lust.
We can't hear it.
Okay, you get your head right in this mic. Stick your head right in here, Bob. There you go. There you go. Say it.
But I say unto you that whoever so looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart.
Boom. That verse used to get me. That was quick, Bob.
Maybe that helped take you to yoga.
What's that?
Maybe that helped bring you to yoga, because again, like a superficial practice of religion would mean like, oh, I can't commit adultery. But a deeper yogic approach is like, really, I have to take it not just on the bodily level, but I have to take it to the level of my words and ultimately how my mind works.
Well, I see it like this, Kaustubha. It's like once you objectify a person, like she's hot, right?
In
then
terms
we're
of
setting
your own...
then we depersonalize them. Then they become a thing. They're a thing for me to enjoy. So as soon as there's lust, it's like the gateway to misogyny. Because what is a misogynist except one who just sees you despise the person. You're just seeing them as a package. You're not you're killing the person off, and they're just a thing for how can I enjoy this thing, basically. It's completely depersonalized. Right. But anyway, lust is also dirty. It can be dirty.
And so did you want to go into talking about the modes, because that's mentioned here in this verse?
Yeah. I was thinking about how like these modes anyway, actually, I don't care about the modes. No, I don't.
Okay.
I didn't mean it like that. But you were saying something a moment ago I wanted to say something about too. How without seeing Vishnu, you quoted that verse from the Upanishads.
Yeah.
Without seeing Vishnu in every living being.
Shall I read it again?
Yeah, read it again, please.
The one who systematically sees everything in relation to the Supreme Lord, who sees all living entities as his parts and parcels. That's also kind of becomes clarified big in Bhagavad Gita 4:35. Who sees the Supreme Lord within everything, never hates anything or any being. You had some profound thought on this, Raghunath?
You know, I think I dropped it. I think we started talking about the Playboy subscription. It went right out of my mind. And objectification. All right. Yes. Anyway, if you're new to the gunas, the guna theory is this idea of, it's a way of looking at the material world. And so Kaustubha does nice classes on guna theory too. Kaustubha, I'm going to give a little idea of how I teach the very basic ways of the gunas, and you could approve it if you think you like it.
All right.
I say, first of all, I say that the gunas are a way of observing the material world. It, practically speaking, has nothing to do with God. It's just the way the yogis break down the material world. And one is, there's things in goodness. Things in goodness appear to be good and are good for you. Things in passion appear to be good, but make you suffer. And things in ignorance don't even appear to be good, and they can dismantle your life. Now that's there's a lot of holes in that, but I think that's sort of like a general way to explain the gunas. And then I break it down to like the food you eat. Appears good, good for you. An apple a day, right? Something like that.
Is Rogo freezing up on everyone or just me?
Yeah, he's frozen.
Rogo, we can't hear you. So I don't know if Rogo, if you need to sign out and sign back in again, or if Bob knows how to do something to help.
Bob's going to switch over the internet connection, I
Okay,
think.
here
He
we
was
go.
worried this might happen.
Yeah. So I guess I'll just take I'll take it from here, and hopefully Raghunath will be back to complete that. But this verse we're reading again in text 20. It says, "One's mind is always agitated by the passionate mode of material nature, and bewildered by the ignorant mode of material nature." So it's described that if you take all of matter, you can divide it into three categories: sattva, which is sometimes translated as goodness or purity, and rajas, which is translated commonly as passion, and tamas, which is translated as ignorance. And to be honest, like these terms, I don't know how well they really convey it, but let's just try to understand it, that it's saying that every object that's made out of matter is composed of a blend of these three energies, in the same way that you can take like the three primary colors and say that every color is a blend of these three colors. They say that every material object is a blend of these three different energies: goodness, passion, and ignorance. But within every object, one of these energies is the dominant energy. And you could say that the influence of that energy radiates from that object. And so when we come in contact with that object, that energy kind of radiates through our senses and it can affect our mind in different ways. And so each one of these three different modes has its different influence. The mode of, it conditions us in a different way. The mode of goodness or purity conditions one to a feeling of contentment and to having a very clear and lucid mind. And so if we're in places that are sattvic, if we eat food that is sattvic, if we associate with people that are sattvic, if we listen to music that is sattvic, it will tend to make us feel content, and it'll tend to give us a clear, lucid mind, both of which are essential for yoga.
Can you hear me, Kaustubha?
Now I can, yeah.
All right. Back. Sorry about that.
No problem.
I'm freezing up. I was like in the middle of a very profound thing I was saying, and it was like everyone's like, "Nope, he's frozen."
Well, do you want to
But
continue?
you know what? You said everything I was gonna say. I think even better. So I think it worked out good. It was a divine arrangement.
In any case, why don't I just continue because I've done one, and that is like the mode of
Yeah.
goodness. But the second, then if we say the passion mode, it's almost like the opposite. Whereas the sattvic, the sattvic energy makes one feel content. I've got what I need. Everything is okay. It's only when one's there that one can go internal. Otherwise, we're absorbed in the external. When we associate with the mode of passion, it means, and don't get thrown off by the word passion because it doesn't really fully, sometimes it's just easier to say rajasic. But with the rajasic energy, it convinces one that I don't have what I need to be happy. There's something that I'm lacking. I need to get more of what I have, or I need to get what I don't have. And so when it says in this verse, how did it phrase it? The mind is always agitated by the passionate mode. Agitated. The mind's thinking, I need to get what I don't have. I need to get what I don't have. In that state, it's impossible to practice yoga.
I like that. I like that. I like the way you put it there. It's never happy with what it has. It needs to get more.
Yeah. That in essence, that's what the mode of passion is all about. And then it says that one is bewildered by the ignorant mode. And so that means, and as Raghu was saying, like it doesn't look, to people in that mode, it looks good, right?
Looks totally normal.
Yeah, it looks like, yeah, I want that, that dark thing that, like I want to hang out in the bar at 3 a.m. and get drunk. It looks good to them, but from a, pretty objective point of view, you can see that that's self-destructive behavior,
Sure.
And so the mode of ignorance tends to lead towards laziness or destruction, and in particular self-destruction as well. So the idea is that, and this is a subject that we could talk about for a long time and how it affects us, but the yogi knows that there's certain foods that are sattvic, there's certain foods that are rajasic, and there's certain foods that are tamasic. There's certain music that's sattvic, certain music that's rajasic, certain music that's tamasic. And we could go through everything like that. Places, people, even times of the day, they're all, one of these energies will dominate. And so the yoga, if we don't know this, if we move through the world unaware of this, then practicing yoga becomes much more difficult. Now, people that are a little insightful, even if they may not be familiar with this, they kind of pick up on it. And so therefore there are people that like to wake up early in the morning, eat healthy food, spend time in nature, listen to music that's, that stimulates the mind in a positive way towards, a lucid mind, and so on. So people may, gravitate towards that naturally. But if we study Bhagavad Gita 14th chapter, 17th chapter, 18th chapter goes into a lot of detail about the gunas. And if we really understand it clearly, then it's just all that much more of an advantage in our practice of yoga that we can recognize, oh, hold it, that I feel that rajasic energy, and why? It's because I'm watching this or I'm associating with that. And we realize the effect that it has on our meditation. So here it's saying that the mind is always agitated by the passionate mode of material nature and bewildered by the ignorant mode. But one can rectify such conceptions by the relation of Vishnu. If we bring our mind to what's sattvic, but even beyond that, what is Vishnu means not composed of material energy, right? Vishnu is pure spiritual energy. Then that cleanses the mind of all that the modes have kind of dirtied it up with. And so therefore the idea is we want to meditate deeply and become absorbed. When we associate with sattvic, energy, it becomes easier to absorb that mind deeply. Otherwise, the mind is going to be agitated or bewildered in one way or another. Is that all right, Raghu? Something you'd like to add to that?
I'm glad you did it.
Well, thank you.
All right, that was 22. 23.
No, that was 20.
Oh, that was 20. Sorry about that. 21. Sorry, got mouse issues. There we go. 21. O king, by the system of remembrance and by being fixed in the habit of seeing the all good personal conception of the Lord, one can very soon attain devotional service to the Lord under his direct shelter. I'm going to read that again because I fumbled. O king, by this system of remembrance and by being fixed in the habit of seeing the all good personal conception of the Lord, one can very soon attain devotional service to that Lord under his direct shelter. Nice. 22. The fortunate King Cricket, inquiring further, said, O Brahmana, please describe in full detail how and where the mind has to be applied and how the conception can be fixed so that the dirty things in a person's mind can be removed. How do I get rid of these dirty things in the mind?
How should I fix my mind, right?
Yeah.
And now what's going to happen is a long description of how one can see this universe and connect it in their mind to Lord Vishnu, so that when I see this or that in this world, which is composed of matter, I can think of Lord Vishnu, and therefore the mind can become purified.
Prabhupada says this one thing in the purport I just want to share.
Yeah.
The dirty things in the heart of a conditioned soul are the root cause of troubles for him. And then he says, these are accumulated during a long prison life in the material world. Mm-hmm. You know, I think the one thing, Kaustubh, I like about this Vedic paradigm is, you know, it's very easy for people to say, for people to even throw out the concept of God, because they think, well, there's so much tragedy in the world and there's pain in the world. How can there be a loving God in the world? But the Vedic paradigm is very clear that, you know, you might be King Kaustubha, the lovable, benevolent king, and then I'm a citizen and I commit a crime, and then I get subject to this warden who puts me in this prison house, and in the prison house there's so many restrictions, there's lack of freedom, there's other crazy criminals in the prison house. I can't blame you or the warden for my suffering in prison. I have to go on. I have to take some responsibility for my choices, and it's my choices that are keeping me in the prison house. It's got nothing to do with divinity, with God, with Krishna. God doesn't want us in prison. Our choices have implicated us, and we continually make poor choices. I can see in my own life. I make poor choices that implicate me in more bad reactions. So it's really nice how, and it's also really sad, because when we always push this narrative of life is good, life is great, life is fun, life is a place to learn lessons. Life is a place to evolve. Life is a place to grow. If I walk around with the lenses that just say life is here for fun, I'm setting myself up. And I think this is another big problem with what's happening with social media and things like that. We're posting the highlight reel of our life, and it leads to depression, because people are thinking, he's enjoying and she's enjoying and she's on a tropical vacation. What am I doing with my life? And what's going on is that it's the same thing. We're trying to present the material world as this place of enjoyment. Now, the prison has some enjoyable things in it. You get to work out. There's a library. There's, they play basketball in the courtyard. But it's not the place for material enjoyment. It's the place to learn, okay, I'm a criminal, I did this time, and I have to rectify myself. And so in Bhakti, and the whole spiritual culture of India, is practicing a lifestyle to free myself from that bondage. And God's got nothing to do with it in one sense. As soon as we make those material choices, he puts us in that material world. And now we're subject to those gunas. And now we're subject to, who could you say? The demigods? Our karma?
Sure. I mean, yeah, however you want to say it. That prison analogy is always a powerful one, right? It's like, The government's
power.
not responsible for us being there. I mean, theoretically, right? The system is working. Like, right.
If the system worked, that's what it would make
Yeah,
sense.
then the president or the government isn't responsible for my being there. I'm responsible for my being there. So similarly, we say, why am I suffering? You know, if I look honestly at my life, I see that there's a lot of suffering in life. Why am I suffering? And we should understand, then we could make that logical next step that it must be due to something about my own behavior, where I'm at, and what is it that needs to be rectified. And
This
so, yeah,
is a T-shirt company. You and me should start.
yeah, what would be the one?
Life is suffering. Life is suffering. That's right. Instead of like the "Life is good" T-shirts that people wear, life is good. Oh yeah, is it? Let's analyze it.
Yeah, and it's not that there's no beauty or anything in it, but if there is suffering, we should the experience of suffering should help us understand something's not right. Something's not right with me, right? Something's not right with how I'm with my conceptions or so on. And when we get that all straight, then even we pass through difficult times, we don't suffer in the same way.
That's good. Truthfully, if we actually follow these teachings more, suffering is minimized because we're sattvic.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry for that little
Not at all.
detour. Text 23. Sukadeva Goswami answered, one should control the sitting posture, regulate the breathing process by yogic pranayam, and thus control the mind and senses with intelligence. Apply the mind to the gross potencies of the Lord.
So that was, you can see there, that's asana, sitting posture, regulate the breathing, pranayama, and then control the mind, pratyahara, control the senses and control the mind, ultimately dharana. And then it's saying now, once a yogi's been able to do that, again, if one isn't inclined to thinking of God in the personal form, then one could practice Ashtanga yoga and then begin to fix the mind on the Virat Rupa, the universal form of God, seeing the universe as the form of God. And now we're about to hear how one can see that.
Text 24. The gigantic manifestation of the phenomenal material world as a whole is the personal body of the absolute truth, wherein the universal resultant past, present, and future of the material time is experienced. What? The gigantic universal form of the person.
In other words, past, present, and future don't exist in Krishna's body.
Okay.
Right? Time doesn't affect the spiritual energy. But this is the form, you could see this world as a form of Krishna's body that is where time is in effect, where there is past, present, and future, where there is aging and so on.
Okay. The gigantic universal form of the personality of Godhead within the body of the universal shell, which is covered by sevenfold material elements, is the subject for the Virat conception. The Virat is like the entire cosmos. Persons who have realized it have studied that the planets known as the Patala constitute the bottoms of the feet of the universal Lord, and the heels and the toes are the Rasatala. So those are the layers of planetary system. I guess you can call them universes, right? The Patala isn't a planet.
Well, no, it's all within one universe, right? And within one universe, there's 14 levels of planetary systems. So we're starting here at the bottom, and they're going to work their way up.
So Patala is the lowest, but there's many. Patala is not just one planet; it's many planets on that disk, so to speak. And the ankles are the Mahatala planets, and his shanks. What's a shank?
Like
a shin?
The calves.
Okay. Constitute the Talatala planets. Text 27. The knees of the universal form are the planetary systems of the name Sutala, and the two thighs are the Vitala and Atala planetary systems. The hips are the Mahitala, and outer space is the depression of his navel. The chest of the original personality of the gigantic form is the luminary planetary system. His neck is the Mahar planets. His mouth and his forehead is the Tapas planetary system. So now we're looking at the higher planetary systems. Yeah. Tapaloka.
Janaloka, Tapaloka.
It's pretty cool. There's planets of higher beings. I guess that's what we call heavens. Heaven.
I mean, I
'Cause
think
you
the
think about it,
Christian
the Bible doesn't
conception.
really describe heaven, but there's like, in the Vedas they say there's higher planetary systems, planets of great yogis, planets of great tapasvis, planets of great sages, planets of forefathers. They're like heavens.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think the Christian conception is like an eternal realm, the Christian conception of heaven, where these are temporary realms, but
Yeah,
they're heavenly.
they're heavenly. Okay. The chest of the original personality Godhead is the gigantic form of the
Oh, there
luminary.
is. Oh, okay, you read that already. You can read
Okay.
it.
Yeah. Sorry. Text 29. His arms are the demigods headed by Indra. The 10 directional sides are his ears, and the physical sound is his sense of hearing. His nostrils are the 2 Ashwini Kumars. Are the Ashwini Kumar also planets? They represent planets too, I think. Is that what they're going into right now?
It's you see, you know, I remember. It's interesting. I remember that you and I, not this past January, but the January before, there was a deity installation at the Eco Village, where
Yes.
they installed this form of Krishna Madan Mohan. And I remember watching that installation. I wish I could actually draw up on it right now, like all the things that were said. But I remember the priests they had, like this kusha grass in their hand, and they had the form of Krishna, a carved marble form of Krishna. And the idea was through the ritual, it's asking Krishna to reside in this form.
Mm.
And what they were doing was the priest would touch a certain part of the body of the deity and then chant mantras, basically saying all the stuff that's being said right here. It, for all I know, may have been derived directly from this. I'm not sure. It was probably derived from the Vedas. But it was saying that, here it's saying the arms are the demigods headed by Indra. So they would touch the arms and say, and mention this kind of thing, his ears, the physical sound, his sense of hearing, his nostrils are the 2 Ashwini Kumars. It would touch each one. It's saying that in a sense we can see the universe. And when we say the universe, it means the planets. And it means that behind all the planets, there's a different deva, there's a different demigod. Behind the sun, there's a deva. Behind the moon, there's a deva. Behind all the different luminaries and all the different planets, none of them is, just like we would say there's the different country and every country has a leader that's running it, right? Within the universe, all these different universe, whether it's luminaries or whether it's planets or moons, they all have a person behind them. And all those persons have influence.
Such a great conception, isn't it? There's a person behind every force.
Yeah.
There's personality behind even a planet.
Yes. And so the idea was, as they're installing that form of Krishna, it's saying that ultimately all of these, Krishna is behind all of them. So we could metaphorically say that his arms are the devas headed by Indra. They're getting things done in a certain way.
Okay.
And that the 10 directional sides are his ears. The physical sound is his sense of hearing. That sound is, it's a metaphor.
What's that ritual called when you put the life in the deity? The
Pranapratishta.
Pranapratishta.
Yeah, that's what it was, the Pranapratishta of that deity. So again, what does this mean to yogi? And a lot of these things are saying, well, I don't know how, if you were a yogi that had been educated in a certain way, that was familiar with reading these cosmic descriptions, that had a deep faith, that that were kind of raised like every morning, and like we see this in India, right? Like that a lot of people, when they see the sun for the first time in the day, then they offer their respects to the sun. Just take a few seconds, right, and offer respects to the sun. When you go and you see the ocean, you don't just like think about your own enjoyment or diving into it or whatever we think about. You go down and you touch that water, you touch it to your head, you offer your respects to it, because and you offer respects to the deva that's represented there in the water, in the sun.
It's actually a beautiful way to see the world, isn't it?
Yeah. And so this is a way that if you were brought up in that culture, educated in these texts, then it's not such a stretch for you to begin to see, okay, like when I meditate on the different planets, I see them in this way. When I see the sun, I think of it this way, and when I see the moon that way. When I think of sound, I actually think a little bit deeply about it, and say that there's a being that hears, and sound is a manifestation of that being's hearing.
So we should be taking all this stuff sort of figuratively.
It is metaphorically, but it's a way of training the mind.
Mara, is figuratively the same as metaphorically?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, thank you. Just clarify.
Thank you for that. But the point is, it's a way of training the mind. There's a connection that's real, that's not metaphorical, but describing it this way is metaphorical.
All right. Text 30. The sphere of outer space constitutes his eye pits, and the eyeball is the sun as the power of seeing. His eyelids are both the day and the night, and in the movements of his eyebrows, Brahma and similar supreme personalities reside. His palate is the director of water, Varuna, and the juice or the essence of everything is his tongue. They say that Vedic hymns are the cerebral passage of the Lord, and his jaws and teeth are Yama, the god of death, who punishes the sinners, people who act inappropriately in this world. The art of affection is his set of teeth, and the most alluring illusory material energy is his smile. This great ocean of material creation is but the casting of his glance over us. 32. His modesty is the upper portion of his lips. Hankering is his chin. Dharma is the breast of the Lord, and adharma is his back. Brahmaji, who generates all living beings in the material world, is his genitals, and Mitra Varunas are his two testicles. Mitra Varunas. The ocean is his waist, and the hills and mountains are the stacks of his bones. Continue on.
Sure.
O king, the rivers are his veins of the gigantic body, and the trees are the hairs of his body, and the omnipotent air is his breath. The passing ages are his movements, and his activities are the reactions of the three gunas, of the three modes of material nature. O best among the Kurus, the clouds which carry water are his hairs on his head. The terminations of days or nights are his dress, and the supreme cause of material creation is his intelligence. His mind is the moon, the reservoir of all changes.
I think just to help maybe clarify this just a bit, I think it's not uncommon for people with a little bit of faith that they'll see a beautiful sunset.
Sure.
Right. And they'll look at the sky as a canvas, and they'll think this is the art of God. Right. And we think, my goodness, nobody can paint a more beautiful painting than this. Sometimes the way the sky and the clouds and the light manifests is just like, right?
Yeah.
It's just so fabulous. And so people think, oh, this is the art of God. So like you could have put, the sky is his canvas, and this, it's just another metaphorical way of looking at it. So, the terminations of days and nights are his dress. Because just like we take off clothes and then we put them on, and then we take them off and then we put them on. So the days are switching back and forth. It's just a way of connecting everything with thinking of God in the same way that we might look at the sky and connect it with God.
Yeah, I like that, because we do that naturally, like you're saying, the sunset. I like that. Okay. Virat 37. Oh, no, 35. Sorry. 35. The principle of matter, the Mahatattva, is the consciousness of the omnipresent Lord, as asserted by the experts, and Rudradev is his ego. The horse, mule, camel, and elephant are his nails, and wild animals, and all quadrupeds are situated in the belt zone of the Lord. Varieties of birds are indications of his masterful artistic sense. Manu, the father of mankind, is the emblem of his standard intelligence, and humanity is his residence. The celestial species of human beings, like the Gandharvas, Vidyadharas, Charanas, and angels, are represent his musical rhythm, and the demoniac soldiers are representations of his wonderful prowess. The Virat Purusha's face is the Brahmanas. His arms are the warriors, the Kshatriyas. His thighs are the Vaishyas, and the Sudras are under the protection of his feet. All the worshipable demigods are also overtaken by him, and it is the duty of everyone to perform sacrifices with feasible goods to appease the Lord. I have thus explained to you the gross material gigantic conception of the personality of Godhead. One who seriously desires liberation concentrates his mind on this form of the Lord, because there's nothing more than this in the material world. One should.
Well, let's read a little commentary to this.
Okay.
So Prabhupada, he writes here, the transcendental form of the Lord is beyond the jurisdiction of such materialistic activities, and it is very difficult to conceive that the Lord can be simultaneously localized. In other words, here he is, the person, and all pervasive, right? It's difficult to conceive of that. Because the materialistic philosophers and scientists think of everything in terms of their own experience. Right? So he's saying it might be difficult. I might be able to look at the universe and say this is God, but it might be hard for me to think that God can be everywhere and at the same time be in a form like a personal form. And that's because I'm judging things based on my own experience. My own experience is I'm limited. My form is limited. So if God is unlimited, he can't have form. Okay, so he says, because they're unable to accept the personal feature of the Supreme Lord, the Lord is kind enough to demonstrate the Virat, the universal feature of his transcendental form. And herein, Srila Shukadeva Goswami has vividly described this form of the Lord. He concludes that there's nothing beyond this gigantic feature of the Lord. There's nothing that exists that we can't connect to God. None of the materialistic, thoughtful men can go beyond this conception of the gigantic form. The minds of the materialistic men are flickering and constantly changing from one aspect to another. Therefore, one is advised to think of the Lord by thinking of any part of his gigantic body. And by one's intelligence only, one can think of him in any manifestation of the material world: the forest, the hill, the ocean, the man, the animal, the demigod, the bird, the beast, or anything else. Each and every item of the material manifestation entails a part of the body of the gigantic form, and thus the flickering mind can be fixed in the Lord only and nothing else. Right? If my mind moves from this to that, but if I connect it all to the body of Vishnu, then I'm keeping my mind fixed on Vishnu. This process of concentrating on the different bodily parts of the Lord will gradually diminish the demoniac challenge of godlessness and bring about gradual development of devotional service to the Lord of Bhakti. Now this is nice, right? Now, that may sound religious and, but this is the essence right here.
I don't think so.
Well, by saying that, one has to fix their mind on the Lord and nothing else, and that this will gradually diminish the demoniac challenge of godlessness. That language is religious language.
But you know what I think is, it's like whenever a person enters into nature, be it sort of like, when you drive the Super Soul and you're like from the city and you're like, oh my God, the stars, or if you're in the Grand Canyon, or if you're if you're at the ocean,
Right.
if you're in the forest, you're like, wow, there's an awe in nature that people naturally defer, like, this is God. It's sort of like it humbles you. Where the city, you think of, oh wow, look what man created. Wow, we created that. I wonder what I could create. We start to appreciate man and their creation.
Yeah.
But once you just see the ocean and you're just like, this is magnificent, you're like immediately humbled, and you are put as the controller and the creator into perspective as I'm tiny, right?
Yeah.
Or a gardener, or a person gardening.
Yeah, and that there's something or someone that connects us all. Right? And you're freezing on this, Raghu. So I'll continue this commentary. And this is the part that I think so important to get to. Every being is part and parcel of the complete whole. Right? That's what we can feel, I think, when you're related to what you're saying. Every being is part and parcel of the complete whole. The neophyte student will gradually realize the hymns of Ishopanishad, which state that the Supreme Lord is everywhere, and thus he will learn the art of not committing any offense to the body of the Lord. Right? If I begin to see everything and everyone is connected to God, in one sense as part of God or the energy of God, well, now I'm going to respect every human being. I'm going to respect the earth. I'm going to, this sense of God-mindedness will diminish one's pride in challenging the existence of God. Thus, one can learn to show respect to everything, for all things are parts and parcels of the Supreme Body. Right? So if we try to understand spirituality in this way, right, that it does have to do with realizing that there is a divine source or divine root behind everything, and that's a personal source, but that everything is connected to that divine source. And when I begin to see it that way, then I actually learn respect and ultimately love, for every living being, for every human being, for every animal, for the earth, et cetera, et cetera. And what Srila Prabhupada was so much trying to do through presenting Bhagavatam, but, again, as we said, writing it and then traveling on that boat and coming to the Western world. He was trying to show that there's an answer to like all the different problems that we're struggling so intensely with right now. There's an answer to the ecological issues that we're facing. There's an answer to the racial issues that we're facing. There's an answer to the tensions that lie between people, whether it's in terms of race or gender or economic or all these things. It's because we're not seeing this connection that we have. We're missing out on it. And Bhagavatam is meant to draw the mind back to that. So this chapter, which there's only one more verse we can read, is there to help us see. It's a way of seeing everything in connection to God. And what Prabhupada is calmly trying to point out is when we see that's actually the most holistic way of solving not just one of our problems, but it's actually the answer to all of our problems.
It's the roots.
Yeah, it's getting to the roots, exactly.
Getting to the roots of the issue. All right, last verse. Then we finish the chapter.
All right.
Text 39. One should concentrate his mind upon the personality of Godhead, who alone distributes himself in so many manifestations, just as ordinary persons create thousands of manifestations in dreams. One must concentrate the mind on him, the only all blissful absolute truth. Otherwise, one will be misled and will cause his own degradation. Yep.
Yeah. Maybe we could end just by reading some of those Ishopanishad verses that Prabhupada spoke about in that commentary that I just read.
Oh, yeah. You got this pulled up?
Yeah. These are mantras 5, 6, and 7 from the Ishopanishad. It says, the Supreme Lord walks and he does not walk. It's meaning that he's got his personal manifestation and his all-pervasive manifestation, right? The Supreme Lord walks and he does not walk. He is far away, but he's very near as well. He is within everything, and yet he's outside everything. You got it.
I'm following this now.
He who systematically sees everything in relation to the Supreme Lord, who sees all living entities as his parts and parcels, and who sees the Supreme Lord within everything, never hates anything or any being. One who sees all living entities as spiritual sparks, in quality one with the Lord, becomes a true knower of things. What then can be illusion or anxiety for him?
Boom. That was beautiful. And that is our cue, sir.
Right.
Woo!
Got sleeping Saturday
thanks.
tomorrow.
You know what I like, Kaustubha? I like when people, you don't see him for a while.
Oh, he froze up on his camera. Okay, we lost the music. We've lost Raghunath.
Family reunion.
Okay.
So welcome to see you from Vienna here. Hi, Alexia. And of course, Damodar Sarup. We don't get to see him very much because he's so Californian on us. Nitai Lieberman.